The AA Daily Reflections for April 4th, entitled Crying for the Moon. This very real feeling of inferiority, how appropriate for this morning, is magnified by his childish sensitivity, and it is this state of affairs which generates in him that insatiable, abnormal craving for self-approval and success in the eyes of the world. Still a child, he cries for the moon, and the moon, it seems, won't have him. Whoa, how appropriate this is for me this morning. That is from The Language of the Heart, page 102. While drinking, I seem to vacillate, there we go, vacillate between feeling totally invisible and believing I was the center of the universe. Searching for that elusive balance between the two has become a major part of my recovery. The moon I constantly cried for is, in sobriety, rarely full. It shows me instead of its many other phases, and there are lessons in them all. True learning has often followed an eclipse, a time of darkness, but with each cycle of my recovery, the light grows stronger and my vision is clear. Okay, so this is what I'm feeling this morning. I have been less motivated to make videos. This is what I do for a living. I make videos. Here, well, I just make videos so that I can understand the daily reflections better. And hopefully somebody that watches may, I don't know, just turn this on while they're driving and hear my crazy thoughts. I've always felt inferior to everybody. Now, on one hand, that has driven me to work harder, I think, because I don't feel good enough. Does that come from my childhood? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Has it contributed to my alcoholism? Absolutely. It also contributes to me being validated by the external, whether it be hitting a certain number of views, hitting a certain number of subscribers, getting a pat on the back, being mentioned by another creator. That fills up my God-sized hole in my heart. Even with that realization, and even with having a fairly consistent prayer and meditation routine or consistent behavior when it comes to prayer and meditation, I still default back to that. That's my instincts, is to be validated by the outside world because I always feel inferior. I absolutely had no middle ground when I was drinking. I either thought I would, and you hear this all the time in the rooms, I either felt less than or more than. I never really felt in the middle. And I generally hung out in the less than inside. I wouldn't really mention it, but I would always try to do different things to make myself feel good, whether it be my career. And some of it's been good because I enlisted in the Navy and I qualified for the nuclear program, which was the hardest academic program in the military across all different branches. And so when I heard that, I'm like, oh, it's the toughest? I'll do that. And then when I got through nuke school, the hardest duty for a nuke, Navy nuke, was submarine duty. And I was like, oh, I'll do that. So I was always wanting to do the hardest thing. And I don't know who I was trying to please. I guess maybe myself. I guess I was trying to prove to the world that I was worthy. And then when I was there, I'm like, well, what's the hardest thing to do as an enlisted sailor? Well, it's to become an officer. So I became an officer, or I put in a package to become an officer. I was picked up as an alternate. So I didn't make it the first time I applied. But what I did do was I called the office on really probably twice weekly to see where I was at on the alternate list. And I think I bugged them so much that the week before the officer training started, I got a call. And they said, can you be to Newport, Rhode Island in 5 days? And I was living across the bay from Seattle, Bangor, Washington. And I said, absolutely. And I was going to have to drive the whole way. Guess what? It was the hardest thing. I could prove it to myself. I could prove that I could drive all the way across the country in 5 days. What does that have to do with this? Well, it means that I've never felt good enough. I've never felt like I was valuable. Needless to say, I got through that, went to flight school, and guess what I wanted to do? I wanted to fly jets. Why? Because it's the hardest thing to do. And guess what happened? I woke up in a psychiatric unit in Pensacola, Florida, because I had tried to kill myself by drinking a whole bunch and taking a bunch of pills. So my career was over at that point. So then I started to get to participate in the hardest thing that I would ever go through, and that's trying to get sober and trying to relearn everything that was innate and instinctual in me. And then give myself over to the care of God and understand that left to my own devices, I legitimately knew nothing. Didn't know how to live. There's an episode of Seinfeld where George just starts to do the opposite of everything he thinks he should do. And miraculously, his life starts to completely turn around because he was doing the opposite. And that's kind of what AA had to teach me, is how to do the opposite and how to be okay with doing the opposite. And then how to be reinforced by doing the opposite of what my instincts were. And then at some point crossing a bridge to where I knew what my instincts were, but yet I sought the behaviors that I needed to do on a regular basis to maintain that peace and serenity. That peace and serenity didn't happen all at once either. It's kind of grown and changed like the phases of the moon. I don't always have a full moon every day. Sometimes it's dark. And there's seasons, I think, associated with sobriety, whether it be in the first year or the 10th year. Sometimes I feel motivated, sometimes I don't feel motivated, but I think our feelings are kind of crap. We're all entitled to feelings, but having a bunch of different strong feelings, whether they be good or bad, led me to drinking. I have lost the right to let my feelings dictate how I act. If I do what I'm supposed to do, pray every day, meditate, read the daily reflections, read some literature, do something to help other people, and hopefully this does help other people. Talk to other drunks, be friends with other drunks, have a core group of friends, and go to meetings. If I do those things, then I'm not guaranteed not to drink, but I've got a pretty good chance. The odds are in my favor. The outlook is promising. Okay, that's it for today. I hope everyone has a great day, April 4th. Do something nice for somebody else, even if it's not a drunk, and try to do it anonymously. Hope you stay sober today. Please like and subscribe if you like these videos. Bye.